The gospel for today is from Matthew, the 11th chapter. Now Jesus spoke to the crowd, saying, "To what will I compare this generation? It's like children sitting in the marketplaces calling to one another. We played the flute for you, and you did not dance. We wailed, and you did not mourn. For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say, 'He has a demon.' The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, 'Look, a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners.' Yet wisdom is vindicated by her deeds." At that time, Jesus said, "I thank you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and the intelligent and have revealed them to infants. Yes, Father, for such was your gracious will. All things have been handed over to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Come to me, all you who are weary and carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." The gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. You may be seated. Well, I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Now, this reminds me of what sermons are supposed to have, right? They're supposed to have 3 main points and a yoke. And a yoke. But not every yoke goes over easy, did it? Okay. Of course, the yoke Jesus is talking about is more like a guiding yoke, the yoke that we wear at communion. This is how Jesus moves the farm animal around. In order to produce the abundant crop, you have to know how to guide other life. And so Jesus talks about him helping guide us using a yoke. But now that you've discovered that my yokes are rotten, how about 3 points? Okay. The 3 topics that this sermon will address first are church communities work best when we can yoke together. Second, how marriage can be a yoke in our lives to bring us together. And the third point, if I can egg you on with one more, is the music we sing in worship service, in community, in solidarity with our fellow country members, has a long history in the Bible of yoking people together. Even if sometimes, like at weddings, it can cause our emotions to get all yoked up. Oh, stretching that. It's gone too thin. Well, you have survived. So about the first point, the church community works best when we can yoke together. Otherwise, our priorities can become easily scrambled. In today's reading, Jesus is accused of eating and drinking with tax collectors and sinners. Who knows? Maybe even Jesus ate eggs with them. We don't know. But reacting to this criticism, Jesus puts up a mirror to the people who aren't willing to share their meal or talk with others that they believe are below their class. That's an issue. And I would wager that even Jesus was talking at the dinner table about religion and politics. But for some reason unknown to privileged people, Jesus chooses to yoke together people in the church who otherwise may not get along. Interesting thing, this church. What? Wait a second. Jesus says here, he's a friend of tax collectors? Wait a second. Where are we? God's a friend of tax collectors? What's that good for? And then Jesus says this, that infants understand heaven and earth better than intelligence can. Did you pick up on that? The wise and intelligent don't even understand the ways of God like an infant can. What if all this money that's being pumped into the intelligence, the artificial intelligence, was instead funding healthy births of infants? What if all this money, this billions of dollars, were to go into accountable foster care that helps the life of the infants that God is trying to bring into our world? But instead, the corporation wants to replace babies with gigabots. Sons and fathers like Jesus and our Father are hard to come by. Well, learning to be humble. So there's at least one way I've learned to be humble in my life, and that is by sharing everything I own. Do any of you else realize that you've chosen to share everything you own in marriage? Who else has shared everything in their life? Right? This is this agreement that we enter into. And it said that the first test of the strength of this bond, this yoking together of people, is the planning of the wedding itself. Just the planning. And for the second test, Ali and I tried to float an inflatable kayak together down the river. Years ago, when I first asked Aaliyah if I could retell this story, she replied, "I'm glad you can laugh about it now." Okay? We were still new to our marriage, and Aaliyah and I hadn't really learned crisis communications yet. And we started to float our boat down the river, and we were invited by another church family to go down the river, and this was up in Oregon, that we were serving a church there, and our kayak was following their kayak, but it was just me and Aaliyah in our kayak, and theirs, it was the father and two of their children, and well, they had done this before, okay? And they had already floated right through the rapids that were underneath the big bridge in the river. And they were already a quarter mile ahead. However, little did I know, as we began to spin in circles as we approached the rapids, circling right towards those cement pillars which held up that bridge, little did I know that as I began barking orders at Aaliyah, "No, do it to the right, to the left, no." Little did I know that on that bridge was the mother of that church family, waiting to shoot a nice picture of us floating down the river. She said she wasn't able to get a good picture of us, which I think was a bit of mercy on her behalf. So I didn't have to see myself humiliated, enraged, and spinning in circles. Because being yoked together can be difficult, especially in the church when we're yoked to one another, because Jesus puts everyone in the same boat. And it can be embarrassing how we've been angry with people that Jesus has called us to love. Now, Aaliyah and I have since had successful kayaking trips out to the Channel Islands and in Texas also, but there we had our own kayaks, our own individual kayaks. That worked well. But in the same boat together. It's been said that the sanctuary itself is named after boat parts, the nave of the boat, right? We have this upside down boat for us here in our sanctuary that we're all on together like Noah's ark floating downstream. But, like I was mentioning, that in terms of weddings, the first test of the relationship is the wedding itself. And now, 23 years ago, because we just had our 23rd anniversary, right? I got it right. We spent as much time on just the music selection alone as we did on the invitations, the ceremony, the food choices. We were finally able to come up with Aaliyah's father, who wanted to do a dessert for us. My last name being Bartlett, he did a Bartlett pear. Her last name being Rice, did a rice pudding. Bartlett pear rice pudding worked out really well, but we still spent more time planning the music than we did virtually any other part, because music is important. Music is a way that we humans join together. We sing music in church, joining together in worship. And on the 4th of July, we sing national anthems, possibly, in our hearts or out loud. And we're going to sing some more here in our worship service. But think of the powers of Christmas music alone to unite us in ways that are magical, I'll even say, to bring a community spirit together. But of course, not everyone likes the same kind of music, and that's why it took Aaliyah and I hours and hours to consider, because her father wanted a special country song so that he could have the father-daughter dance. And Aaliyah and I had practiced salsa moves for a good year. And as many of you know, Aaliyah is an accomplished dancer. However, I am a hack at dancing and don't like to remember my moves very well. And apparently at our wedding reception, I could remember about 2 moves that looked like a yo-yo, and I kept yo-yoing Aaliyah back and forth and spinning her around. That's all I could remember from a year's worth of salsa lessons. Well, in the gospel, Jesus tells this short parable in which children call out to each other, "We played the flute for you, and you did not dance." And then it says, they cried out to one another, "We mourned, and you did not cry. We wailed, and you did not mourn." Well, sure, weddings include a bit of both. Somebody welling up in tears in front of the microphone, and also dancing together. And it's at that point of the wedding reception that the DJ turns on the music to one of the songs that we all know, which is either what? YMCA or the Macarena, right? Which we can all do kind of both of that one. But these songs, we recognize, have a power in themselves to help us come together. And it's why we're constantly in our worship service finding music that helps us worship together, celebrate God's love in our lives here in our church. And it's why we, in a way, do this dance each Sunday on our way up to communion as we circle around and back and forth. This line dance, right? We all have our moves that we get ready for. There's really nothing new to this. I mean, just the 150 Psalms in our Bible are songs that are meant to be sung together. Okay, so back to the 3 points in the yoke. First, the Christian church community works like Jesus intends us to when we can yoke together people of all types, even when we disagree. Second, marriage can be thought of a yoke that can bring us together to help produce healthy, wonderful children in a world that God desires to put God's imprint in the infants rather than the intelligence. And the third point was that music that we sing together in worship, in community, and in solidarity with our fellow country members has a long history in the Bible of yoking us together. And so now with that experiment, let us rise and we'll sing our hymn of the day, which is a combination of these themes. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies.